The identity of the one who truly stands at the top of the Plasma King operation remains hidden, and yet the pressure around Grayson is tightening in a way that suggests the system is reacting, adapting, almost like a living organism aware of the threat closing in on it. What unsettles me the most is how controlled everything still feels, even as cracks begin to appear. Grayson is being squeezed from all sides. That much is clear, and yet he has not broken. That alone tells me that whoever is above him is not just powerful, but calculated enough to maintain loyalty through fear or leverage or something even more personal. And in the middle of all this, Jacob delivers what he calls good news to Smitty, but even that moment feels layered with tension rather than relief. Because in a situation like this, good news is never purely good. It is always a sign that something deeper has been uncovered, something that might bring them closer to the truth, but also closer to danger. When I start thinking about who could be the head of this illegal plasma trade network, my mind immediately goes to the most obvious name, Joey. He fits too well into the role almost perfectly. He has the infrastructure, the casinos, the financial channels, the access to Vanessa's real estate company, all of which provide the ideal cover for laundering massive amounts of money. It is not just plausible, it is efficient. And the more I think about the deaths connected to the network, the more I can imagine Joey being directly or indirectly responsible. There is something about Joey that has always felt off to me, not in an obvious way, not in a way that screams villain, but in a subtle way he positions himself, always one step removed, always protected by layers of influence. If someone like him were running the operation, it would explain how everything has remained so well hidden for so long. And yet, this is exactly why I hesitate. Because if Joey really were the one at the top, would he have allowed Jacob to get this close? That is the question that keeps pulling me back. Joey knows Jacob is investigating. That much is undeniable. And Joey is not careless. If he truly controlled the entire operation, there is no scenario where he would let a police officer infiltrate his network this deeply. He would have shut it down immediately, or worse, eliminated the threat before it even became visible. So either Joey is not the leader, or he is playing a much more dangerous and complex game than I initially thought. And that possibility that Joey could still be involved but not at the very top opens up an entirely different layer of the story. It suggests a hierarchy, a structure, where even someone as powerful as Joey might be taking orders from someone else. That is when my attention shifts to Leah. Leah is an interesting figure, not because she stands out, but because she does not. She operates in a space that feels almost too ordinary. The hospital, a place associated with care and recovery, and yet it is precisely that environment that makes her so difficult to read. She is Grayson's superior, the one giving him instructions, the one directing his actions. That alone places her in a position of authority that cannot be ignored. And then there is the detail Jacob uncovers during his conversation with Smitty, a woman in the hospital. Grayson let it slip, almost unintentionally, that the person giving him orders is a woman, and more importantly, a woman who is difficult to deal with. That single piece of information changes everything. It narrows the field, sharpens the focus, and suddenly Leah is no longer just a possibility. She becomes a central figure in this mystery. What makes this even more compelling is how Jacob approaches it. He does not jump to conclusions. He tests the boundaries. He asks Grayson to request a change in the transaction location, knowing that the response will reveal something about the chain of command. And Grayson's hesitation speaks volumes. It is not just that the request would be difficult, it is that it would challenge someone who is not easily challenged. That tells me that Leah, or whoever this woman is, holds real power. And Jacob realizes something else, something that might be even more important. Grayson is not just receiving instructions through messages. There is direct contact, face-to-face communication, which means there are moments where this hidden figure is physically present, accessible, vulnerable, even if only for a brief time. That is the opening Jacob is looking for. But it is also what makes this so dangerous, because the closer he gets, the more exposed he becomes, and Smitty knows it. Smitty's concern is not unfounded. It is grounded in the reality of how these situations escalate. He wants Jacob to step back before it is too late. And for a moment, I can almost feel the weight of that suggestion, the possibility of walking away, of choosing safety over truth. But Jacob cannot do that. Not because he is reckless, but because he is who he is. A police officer who understands that turning away now would mean allowing something deeply wrong to continue. And that sense of duty, as admirable as it is, also feels like a path that leads him further into danger. Which brings me back to Leah. Is she really the one at the top? Or is she just another layer, another barrier designed to protect the true leader? Because there's still another name that lingers in the background, one that feels almost too unlikely to consider and yet impossible to ignore. Vernon. The idea that Vernon could be the head of Plasma King feels almost absurd at first. He is a politician, a figure who represents order, discipline, the side of the law that is supposed to stand against operations like this. Everything about his public image is constructed to embody integrity. And yet that is exactly what makes the possibility so disturbing. Because we already know that Vernon has secrets. The death of Kenny, the involvement of Martin, these are not minor details. They are fractures in the image Vernon presents to the world. They suggest that beneath the surface there is a different side to him, one that is capable of making decisions that contradict everything he claims to stand for. And if that is true, then the idea that he could be orchestrating something like this is no longer impossible. It becomes terrifyingly plausible. What if Vernon is not just hiding secrets, but actively using his position to shield an entire illegal network? What if the strict, uncompromising politician is actually the perfect cover, the kind of persona that would never be suspected of leading something so dark? That would explain a lot. It would explain the level of organization, the ability to evade law enforcement, the sense that someone is always one step ahead. Because someone in Vernon's position would have access to information, to resources, to influence that could make an operation like Plasma King almost untouchable. But even as I consider this, I cannot shake the feeling that the truth might be even more complex. Because the story keeps layering possibilities: Joey, Leah, Vernon, each one fitting in different ways, each one raising new questions. And the fact that none of them can be definitively ruled out is what makes this so compelling. It is not just about who is guilty, it is about how they might be connected. What if Joey is the financier, the one handling the money, while Leah manages the operations within the hospital, and Vernon provides the political protection that keeps everything running smoothly? That kind of structure would be almost impossible to dismantle from the outside. And Jacob, whether he realizes it or not, might already be standing in the middle of it. That is what makes his progress both exciting and alarming. He is getting closer. That much is clear. Every conversation with Grayson, every piece of information he extracts, brings him nearer to the core of the operation. But it also brings him closer to the point where he can no longer remain hidden. Because at some point, they will notice. They will realize that Grayson is compromised, that information is leaking, and when that happens, the response will not be subtle. It will be immediate, decisive, and potentially deadly. And that is why Smitty's concern feels so justified. But at the same time, I understand why Jacob keeps going, because there is a moment in every investigation where turning back is no longer an option, where the truth becomes something that demands to be uncovered regardless of the cost. And I think Jacob has already crossed that line. Which means the story is moving towards something inevitable, a confrontation, a revelation, something that will finally expose the identity of the one at the top. But until that moment arrives, all we have are these fragments, these clues that point in different directions, forcing me to question everything, to reconsider every assumption. Is Joey the mastermind, hiding in plain sight behind his businesses? Is Leah the true authority, operating from within the hospital, using her position to control the flow of everything? Or is Vernon the one pulling the strings, using his public image as the ultimate disguise? Or perhaps, and this is the thought that lingers the longest, the most unsettling possibility of all, is that the real leader has not even been revealed yet. That everything we are seeing is just the surface, a carefully constructed illusion designed to keep attention away from the true source of power. And if that is the case, then Jacob is not just chasing a criminal. He is walking into something much bigger than he realizes.